Have I ever done a decoction brew before? No. Have I ever done a step mash before? No. Do I know what I'm doing? A decoction brew is essentially the process of taking out a third of your mash, boiling it, returning it to the original mash, rising that temperature, causing a chemical reaction essential for creating those fermentable sugars and producing some beautiful melanoidin flavors. Toasty flavors. I just wanted to sound really smart. Simple enough. Let's start our mash at 55 degrees Celsius, somewhere in that ballpark. Super simple grain bill. We're using 1.8 kilos of Vienna, 400 grams of dark Munich, and 200 grams of medium crystal. We're gonna start with an initial strike temperature of about 58 degrees. Tip in our barley and hopefully that brings it down to about 55 degrees. We're gonna leave it for 20 minutes before we start taking out about a third of our mash. Actually kind of nervous about this. I don't have a very big ladle, this is gonna take a bit. Once we get this up to a boil, I'm gonna boil it for about 10 minutes, scoop my mash back into my main mash and get it up to about 68 degrees Celsius. So that should take about 20 minutes, which means my protein rest is gonna take about 40 minutes all up. I have no idea what a protein rest is. I've since learned that a protein rest is to actually activate enzymes to break down some protein chains. The main reason for not boiling too long is I don't wanna end up too dark. I mean, Vienna Lagers, from what I've seen, are quite coppery, so I'm hoping it's not darker than that. Don't think I boiled enough mash because I only brought it up to 55 degrees from 55 degrees. So I've now got it back on the burner. I'll get it back up to 68 and I'll try again with more mash. Let's try this again with a bit more mash. I think the main problem I'm having is my stovetop's not big enough. Okay, let's try this for the second time. I'm gonna boil it for another 10 minutes, add it in, and hopefully it gets it up to 75 degrees. If not, I'll just mash out. I've just checked the temperature of my main mash and it's dropped all the way down to 60 degrees, so I don't reckon this is gonna get up to 72 degrees. 67 degrees, I didn't get there. Pretty good, pretty good setup, if you don't mind me. As amazing as this setup was, actually separating the mash was quite painful, as you're about to see me in absolute struggle town. You gotta keep them separated. Rinsed out my grain. Now we're just gonna have to wait for it to get to a boil and add in our hops. I'll be using Fuggles and East Kent Golding. 12 grams of Fuggles in at the boil, 60 minutes, and in the last 10 minutes we're gonna use 6 grams of Fugs and 6 grams of EKG. Do love the EKG. Nah, I'm not into it. I'm not gonna do it. Every time I'm like, put a hop in your mouth, it'll be hilarious. It hits the back of my throat and it's like someone's just like, tickle. Anyway, my pre-boil's at 1.045. That ain't high enough. 12 grams of Fuggles in for an hour, then for the last 10 minutes, 6 grams of Fuggles and 6 grams of EKG. The goal here is to essentially create the best whirlpool I can and hopefully end up with as little proteins and as little hop fragments as possible in my fermentation tank. Hopefully all that gobbledygook settles in a little cone at the bottom and then I can extract it and have a nice schmick little beer. So the OG that I wrote down, so my estimated OG should have been somewhere like 1.052. The OG I've got, 1.053. So close, have a look. Sitting at about 30 degrees, so I'm just gonna leave it for a little bit. Once it drops down to about 20, in goes that yeast. See you in 3 weeks. Nova Lager is gonna be my choice of yeast. I've been finding lately that my ferments have been sitting around 15 to 20 degrees. Perfect yeast for it. Look at that delicious color. It's not super pungent, but it definitely has like a malt smell to it. quite juicy. I don't know. I think I've let it sit too long in the fermentation tank again, but I had no time to package. I've been working. It's so hard. Let's just make sure our gravity's okay. I think my hydrometer's broken. It's not broken, I just didn't have enough goop in there. Yeah, I can't really get a shot of it, but it's 1.006. It's very malty, but I don't know. We'll see what happens after it's carbonated. I'm just gonna go with some carbonation drops. I don't really like them, but it's what I have on hand at the moment, so I may as well use them while I've got them. But we'll load up my beer. See you in a couple of days. I packaged this on the 8th of October. It is now the 10th of February. It's been about 4 months. Let's see how we went. Oh, that fizzled out really quick. Now, I'm finding that my swing top bottles aren't holding their pressure very well, so I'm losing a lot of carbonation. But when I've opened it, carbonation has been, like with PET bottles, it's been fantastic. The color on this beer is the color what I imagine beer is, if that makes sense. Aromatically, it's got quite a sweet malty smell. I am a bit sad about the head retention. That fizzled away almost instantly. It was like soft drink is what happened there. Oh, but it is so beautiful. It tastes really good. Now, as I said at the start of this video, I was hoping it would taste, what was the word I used? Melanoidin. I'd never heard that word until Home Brew Club, and one of the fellas said it tastes melanoidin, and I had never been so thrown because I didn't know what that meant. And I also hadn't told him I'd decoction brewed. So he picked up that flavor pretty well, which means I was successful at that. So there's a bit of fizz, but it's quite, honestly, it's a little bit flat. Other than that, I think what I've made is fantastic. I really want to try decoction brewing again. It was really fun. Look, don't get me wrong, I made so many mistakes when I was doing it. Like the mistake I made when boiling my mash, I should have definitely taken more out and then re-put that back into the original mash, and that probably would have gotten those temperatures up a little better. Also, I've now learned how to step mash. I should have learned how to step mash before I learned how to decoction mash. But honestly, what I made was fantastic. I got some great reviews from friends, which is also very important and inflates my ego infinitely. And I absolutely love having fun when I'm brewing. Here is the blackest IPA I've ever made. Click along, subscribe, and I hope to see you again very soon. Cheers!